Dear colleagues, welcome to the second part of the February webinar of the Local Governments and Municipal Authorities Constituency Tours COP28. My name is Yunus Arikan. I'm the Director of Global Advocacy at ICLE Local Governments for Sustainability, and I'm also the focal point of the LGMA constituency to the UNFCCC. Thank you very much for joining us in today's session. We're just giving a couple of minutes for all colleagues to settle down, and then we will proceed as appropriate. We thank you for your patience for that. So let's give one more minute, and then we will be good to go. Meanwhile, we would just like to remind a couple of technical issues. Traditionally, the sessions are recorded and then broadcasted at ICLE's YouTube channel, as well as with the presentation links. We usually recommend participants to stay with us until the end of the presentation or presentations, and then we are trying to open the floor for discussions. But during the presentations, if there are any points you would like to raise, feel free to insert in the chat box or the Q&A box so that you can communicate earlier, and that we can also manage as well. I think we are now reached to the level of all the participants joining us. So let's start to proceed. And my first point would be, of course, it's not a direct agenda, but we are all going through a very unique situation, especially our friends, colleagues, the people of Turkey and Syria are under severe conditions of the very, very severe, unprecedented scale and magnitude of the earthquake that has occurred a week ago. We are seeing this scenes in the past where earthquake is among those natural hazards, but those hazards turn into disaster based on what the humans or the man-made structures, the way they are prepared, the way they are prevented, the way they are managed. And as we have seen in this case, both in Syria and Turkey, there are serious challenges of governance and management of the impacts or the aftermath, and as well as the preparations. Whatever the result, there are thousands, literally tens of thousands of people who lost their life. And whatever the result, whatever the reason, there are hundreds of thousands of people are still unaccounted, and millions of people severely feeling the aftermath, especially accommodation, housing, and safe conditions. So on behalf of ICLE and on behalf of, I assume, for all of the LGMA constituency, we are once again sending our deepest and sincere condolences to the people of Turkey and Syria, those impacted in those areas, as well as the local governments who are really heavily working to respond to this challenge. And in that sense, we do not have too much members in Syria. Northern Syria also has its own challenges, but in Turkey, we have a number of members in ICLE's network, as well as many other global networks. We are aware of their really enormous mobilization for solidarity. In this picture slide, you see the ones that are summarized by as one of the groups of the municipalities, the members of SODEM, Social Democratic Municipalities. Many of ICLE members are part of this network as well, but there are others doing as well. This is just a signal of the mobilization they're running through, the number of logistical and human scale and human resources, financial resources, technical resources that they're mobilizing. And already Mayor of Izmir, even though it's not in the impacted region, but they are doing their best. In Izmir also faced an earthquake 3 years ago. That's also a region for earthquakes. But the 7.2 earthquake in Izmir is also giving them a very interesting experience. Mayor of Izmir, who is also the chair of SODEM and also the GEXCOM member, he is making a call to all its partners around the world. They have created a unique platform, a digital platform that makes the solidarity for those who'd like to donate financial and technical contributions to those in need directly to the recipients of the cities. We are doing our best to support the leadership of Mayor of Izmir, Mayor Tuncer, and all the municipalities in Turkey. And we recommend any of the partners who would wish to do so in a capacity to do so can also join them in helping them to go through this experience, and especially this solidarity, multi-level solidarity, could also be helping us in facing future challenges as well. So I wanted to address this at the beginning of our presentation and webinar today. And again, personally, as being a citizen of this country, Turkey, I'm of course personally attached and connected, but I know this is a solidarity of all global people of the world. And once again, the best of luck to our colleagues in Turkey and Syria. So the LGMA constituency is following the UN process climate negotiations since '95, since its establishment in '95 at first COP. We are regularly interacting during the whole year, not just one event at the end of the year, but the whole COPs. We are part of this process. We conduct our convey our messages to the negotiations agenda as a constituency. Since Paris, we are participating in the action agenda, which is the ambitious actions of the stakeholders. We contribute to the preparation of the presidency. Every year it's changing. They have their own priorities, they have their own ideas and their styles. We try to align as much as possible. Over these years, we have always worked very, very fruitfully with the presidencies, and we look forward to similar collaboration with the Emirates presidency. And of course, where we have secretariat, we have presidents, but there's decision-making is the parties to the UNFCCC, and with them, through our multi-level action, Friends of Multi-Level Action, we want to reach out to all the national governments who support the principles of multi-level action at home and in the UNFCCC process, and we would like to continue this work throughout the year, and we are also developing several new elements of collaboration with them as well. The webinar that you are now in is a monthly webinar. You have seen the dates here. You can register yourself and add your calendar so that you can follow all the events, and it's repeated. Every session is twice in the Eastern Hemisphere and Western Hemisphere, so that we can make sure input from all our partners and constituency members. Let's remember we have celebrated at COP27 the multi-level action pavilion as the collaborative effort of all the stakeholders. It was the home for cities, towns, regions, states, subnationals in the UNFCCC negotiations area. We were proud that this was a collaborative effort of more than 45 partners across the world. It was hosted by the Scottish government as a continuity of their commitment since COP26. Through this opportunity, maybe you have heard about the announcement from the Scottish First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon, that she's stepping down from her role as the First Minister of Scotland. We would like to express through this opportunity, once again, our deepest appreciation to her leadership, not just for the summit, for the pavilion, but overall, Scotland has been a champion on low carbon and climate emergency for a number of years, and they have been particularly very supportive of the loss and damage agenda. We are hopeful the new leadership will continue this legacy of Ms. Sturgeon, and we look forward to her continuous engagement in our agendas, that the climate emergency is not just a political position, and we know she has been addressing this from her bottom of her heart, and we look forward to her support in the new phase of her career and personal life. But through this opportunity, we would like to once again thank to the Egyptian presidency and all the partners who mobilized the technical and financial resources to the agenda of the pavilion. We know we had interacted with more than 500 representatives of local and regional governments across the world who were accredited to the process, to the UNFCCC, either through LGMA members that you have seen here or others, or through their national governments. And among them, we had more than 150 leaders, political leaders, mayors, councillors, governors. So it was one of the strongest delegations as well. And we would like to continue on this journey towards COP28 as well. If we look back, what has been all these interventions, side events, launches of the reports, there are three key takeaways we can comment. First of all, since Glasgow, we were saying that we have to go into emergency mode, and in fact, COP26 and COP27 are in fact the two sides of the same coin. And we can now say that we are in the second phase of the Paris Agreement, which is ambition addressing Glasgow and climate emergency through loss and damage fund addressed in COP27. And in that regard, we are also saying now that the challenge for the moment is now the finance, the governance, and capacity building, so that we deliver all these commitments and mechanisms in rapidly across the world. The second, for us, we were telling that the multi-level time has come, time for multi-level action has come, and multi-level action delivers. Throughout the COP27, we have seen so many initiatives, not just Surge and Urbanization Ministerial, but the initiatives from the Global North and Global South, so many UNFCCC agendas, so many initiatives having a specific role for cities and local and regional governments, so that we are aware now the multi-level action and the transformative power of urbanization is the game changer, that the second phase of the Paris Agreement is much more ambitious and much more rapidly delivering results. And finally, we have seen in Sharm el-Sheikh, technically, financially, logistically, the modality of UNFCCC is not ready or not fit for the Paris Agreement era. If we are seriously saying that the second phase of the Paris Agreement started, we have to rethink all engagement mechanisms, including the way COPs are designed, with the number of mobilization of people inside, on-site and outside, and also the way the engagement mechanisms are developed. There are several discussions across the world, and we also believe we could influence this process through that multi-level spirit is also reflected. There's always a risk. Whenever you're talking about any change in the UNFCCC process, there may be a chance that we can backlash, we can go back. Let's hope that this new change is taking us forward, so that the engagement mechanism we have established is not lost, but even strengthened, and new elements are introduced. So that is the thing that we should think about, especially in collaboration or in synergy with Global Stocktake, as well as the notion that the real climate action does not need to wait until COP. The real climate action takes place at home, and that we should be engaging throughout the year in the countries, in the cities, in the regions, and then present these results to COP, rather than asking COP to make the change. So these are the discussions we have to have in the next couple of weeks and years, months as well, and years. You can have a coverage of the daily activities of LGMA in our website, and we are updating the additional documentation of all the outcomes as well. We are very proud. One of the concrete outcomes is the Urbanization Ministerial, Urbanization Climate Ministerial at the COP that has been taken for the first time, as well as a Surge initiative, which is really introducing a new way of engagement in terms of multi-level action. And we are very proud that so many of our partners have been involving in that. We are aware UN Habitat, as the main coordinator of this process, is continuing to have consultations with the presidencies and as well as other partners. We are assuming that a couple of updates will be on the way soon, including a report of the ministerial and other elements. But we are confident that this will be a priority for us in the years ahead. And in that regard, if we look at our agenda, we should also be aware that we're also receiving now the feedbacks or outcomes from the Biodiversity Summit, which was a major milestone last year. There was a special target under the Kunming Biodiversity Global Framework on urban green space. We have the second action plan for cities and subnational. This is the second 10-year action plan. It is even more stronger, with reporting mechanisms led by cities and regions, and advisory committees explicitly recognized in this action plan. And we have also had the first pavilion in the COP space in the biodiversity conferences, and this will also help us. You will hear there's a very interesting, strong linkages to COP28, because also the priorities of the COP28 as well. Under this condition, we are saying that we have three main priorities: operationalization of Surge. We will make sure the agreement that, or the announcement, is now fully in live, and we are also where we are expecting that in the next couple of months, on the way to and during the UN Habitat Assembly, second one, will have additional outcomes, so that the Surge is a living body. Let's remember, Surge is one of the few initiatives of COP27 presidency that are acknowledged in the action agenda of the champions. So we have a number of inputs to our our efforts, and we are aware there are several governments are also looking for us for advancing, especially taking this advantage of the momentum. So we'll work on it. Stocktake for climate emergency is a unique moment. We have been involved in technical dialogues. We will continue to be involved in the third technical dialogue in June. But in response to the decision of last June, we will now start to plan for our local and regional stocktakes. And we are encouraging all the LGMA constituency to embrace this momentum. A concrete proposal will come in the next couple of days, and we have almost finalized our template, how we can roll this out. We will touch upon this in the next couple of slides, but in particular, we want to make sure that the emergency mode of action, second phase of the Paris Agreement, surge and stocktake for the emergency are in fact, or feeding into the same result that the second phase of the Paris Agreement in multi-level action is much more robust and concrete. And as we said, there's so many processes going on. Loss and damage transition committee is finally established. Developed countries also nominated their representatives. There's so many now agendas coming up. The COP is only one milestone in the year. We have to be aware that throughout the year we have to engage as LGMA. In that regard, we are coming up with additional agendas so that we can feed into the negotiations and we can contribute into the discussions. I see notes from Heloise from Regions 4, but I think, Heloise, we can continue into the Q&A session, so that let me proceed so that we come back to you, because your inputs are, of course, valuable, and that everyone will benefit from this discussion and your points on the way as well. Because especially one point is regarding the way we will relate ourselves with the presidency. I will get back to this because of the letter that we received a couple of days ago. We discussed this agenda. Thanks for all the inputs, because we have updated based on your feedbacks. Once again, we have a calendar of around 70 or so events, and there are some events which is still not even announced. For example, the regional climate weeks. But we are clear, we have a UN and UNFCCC level engagement. This is mainly where we are acting as stakeholders, which means we are not the real decision makers. We are bounded with the UN procedures. There is a second group of activities which is led by global processes or national processes. Their advantage is that they do not, they are not led by UN procedures. It can also turn into a disadvantage in some cases. But there are several events that is really important for us, especially under the G7, G20, and then the events that we will be leading as LGMA constituency, our summits, our meetings, including our plans like Urban 7 and Urban 20 and other meetings throughout the year. If we look at all these, let's say, a big scale of activities, we have been promoting that. We have chosen the key highlights in these among this long list, and several of those are really very important for us. For example, on the beginning of March, we will have the Zero Carbon City Forum and the Urban 7 Mayor Summit. In March, we will have the UN Water Conference. In April, we will work on the 22nd of April, Earth Day, with the first versions of the stocktake, as well as the Cities Summit of Americas, which is a unique initiative of the State Department. And in May, we will continue to Sendai framework. June will be particularly busy. We will have the UN Second Assembly of Habitat, which is exactly in the first week of the UN negotiations in Bonn. And therefore, we would be doing all our best to make sure that Daring Cities on the 12th and 13th of June will become a key milestone that bridges Habitat Assembly to UNFCCC, as well as our work on this space. And then we will continue the high-level political forum in September. In July, we will also have the Urban 20 Mayor Summit, G7 Sustainable Urbanization Ministerial, which is happening the second time in the year. And it's also important because the outcomes could feed into the UNFCCC space as well, even G20 and others, because that doesn't exist in the G20 space. In September, of course, the UN will be the biggest agenda with the SDG Summit, the Climate Action Summit. We will also have our own Leaders Summit of the local and regional governments under the Global Task Force. October will be valuable for us for the whole Urban October, but then we will feed into the other events of as well as the conclude with the the COP28 in multi-level action pavilion, hopefully. And these are the milestones, let's say, that we can think about. We have listed this description of who is who, especially with the new leadership announced by the Emirates. It was at the end of or mid-January. All at the same time, they have announced both the president-designate climate action champion, the first ever youth climate champion, and the domestic coordinator, which gives the impression that Emirates have been preparing for this leadership for a while, and they immediately took the steps forward. The website, the host country website, is also open. You can track a number of information there. And most importantly, of course, we started to have our initial dialogue, and that's what I want to spend a couple of more minutes here. We had the first engagement with the president-designate team on stakeholder engagement team. We had a call with them to test the initial understanding of their preparations, but also our priorities. We clearly asked them whether they would like to continue to build on the surge, especially whether they would like to take this as a presidency agenda, the multi-level action. We are also aware of the Emirates as also a federal state, which is also more open for bottom-up initiatives, actually. We are checking whether there is any new initiative that the presidency is planning for, and if this is the case, it can be informed earlier, and more important, that it builds upon what we have achieved over the past years, and also strengthen what we have announced, rather than building a new complete process. But we are confident that there will be more synergies both in the action agenda but also in the president's agenda in that regard. We also asked how we can benefit from their plans for the logistical planning of the Blue Zone. We have told them that we would like to continue with our presence in the Blue Zone through a multi-level action pavilion. We want to make it even bigger and better, building on the success we have achieved in the past, but also be aware of the opportunities. Dubai is definitely something different than Sharm el-Sheikh. Dubai has a history of urbanization. There has been initiatives like Masdar City, which the president is also the CEO, and that's exactly what we also ask: how is Masdar and Dubai will be engaged in this process, and finally, how we can work together on the stocktake process. After our call, the champion also had his first meeting with the Marrakesh Partnership partners. There, they have also displayed the priorities of the presidency, which does not refer to multi-level action directly. There can be references in the details, but we can also expect that this could also be brought in time. After this communication, we received an official letter from the COP president designate, which is also, I think, is a nice gesture and an indication that they take our engagement seriously. In this letter, there were 5 or 6 main points. First of all, they will announce conditions of affordable accommodation, but I must confess, I am not expecting any COP being cheaper than the previous one. And this means that every COP will be costly. And this is exactly the type of things we have to discuss. Do we need such costly, which some call circus, some call as also some different names, but there is also the discussion about, do we really need this kind of engagement? But whether or not, like it or not, very likely the COP in Dubai will be continuity of the traditional COP procedures with even more participation, which also is a challenge for all of us. But let's see. But we are assuming that the future COPs may really be different, but it takes time for decision making in terms of agreement and consensus. But let's be prepared that Emirates and Dubai may have a transition role as well. They will guarantee e-visa, which I think is more or less like a default nowadays. They will sponsor a youth delegate program, which is very good. They are building on the legacy of the Egyptian presidency in this regard. They are officially offering 1 per constituency, 1 delegate per constituency, for travel support for pre-COP and COP events, and particularly this is from the disadvantaged regions. Let's remember, this is the Asia Pacific COP. Therefore, we could use this to the region, to the representative of the region. For example, last in Sharm el Sheikh, we did not have a representative from small island, for example. I mean, this is an area that we would like to hear more in the years ahead. So we could consider a mobilization like that. This one is particularly interesting. Officially, they are announcing that they will open or facilitate a blue zone space for women, indigenous people, and civil society and gender as a youth. Obviously, none of them include LGMA. It's also a question whether we would wish to get into such a relation, because we are not sure how the other constituencies reacted to this call from the presidency, because of the several constituencies having serious concerns about the way of the leadership is rolling out, that is also having a connection to the oil company of Emirates. But I think this is an area that we have to work on it. And then they're also trying to establish a board of constituencies, which was informally taking place, but I think it's good that they've elevated to a new terminology for this. And I think this will be helpful. Hopefully, this will be operationalized. In that regard, let's remember, building on this discussion, there is on the media and on the number of circles you may have heard, there are several NGOs and stakeholders reacting significantly harsh and aggressively. Some of them are asking replacement of the president designate. Some of them are asking decoupling of the role between ADNOC and the presidency. There is, for example, of senators from the US sending a letter to UNSG, Secretary General, and UNFCCC, and NGOs, the 4 constituencies. We know we have not made a commitment or statement by LGMA yet, but I think it's time coming so that we have to start discussing, especially taking into account this letter that has come from the president designate. I think we could express our concern in a language, and we could suggest our expectation, being aware that maybe not be heard fully, but this should not also stop our engagement with the presidency, taking into account their unique role, for example, as well as, like, in addition to ADNOC, he also hosts this chair of the CEO of the Masdar City, which is also putting us in a unique situation as well. So I think we have to take all this into account. One more slide, in the sense, as we said, Her Excellency Razan has elevated or presented her priorities. Let's remember, we have presidency and we have champions, and the champions have been defining their priorities both in the implementation, which is the action agenda, but also with the engagement, which is the negotiation agenda, which is coming up very concretely now. And this engagement is not constituency based. This is more sector based, or like the different priorities or different group of communities. It's not as the constituency that we know in the traditional sense. We as ICLE and many of the LGMA partners are participating in many of those processes. In the champions agenda, we are coordinating the work of the human settlements group, as called it, with UNEP on the Western consumption. We are in the city's race to resilience, where there has been role of the regions for on the regions for resilience. We are in the race to zero, and we are providing support to the global data platform via CDP reporting platform. But I think there's a need to consolidate all these efforts because of also the confusions, and of course we would like to see where Surge fits in all these efforts so that we advance further based on the outcomes. A couple of final words on the stock take. As we said, yesterday was the deadline for the first submission on what is expected from the outputs of the stock take. I'm expecting some of our members may have made some submissions, and it will be good if we hear this. We as ICLE have not completed our submission, and we will also suggest this. There may be some delays in such submissions. They can accommodate. The later is not that bad than nothing or never. But of course, the Secretariat puts a cutoff date for the preparation of the synthesis report. That's why these deadlines are important. The next deadline is on the 6th of March on the technical dialogue, especially, which is the case in June. what if they will be sharing with LGMA and all the other partners is particularly the format that we are envisaging on how we can make the local and regional stocktakes meaningfully providing input to the global stocktake in Dubai, and the ones that we will host to be taking that up earlier, that during the year that should be happening. In the sense that we have experienced Talanoa dialogues, which was a unique moment in 2008. It gained, originally it was a one-off event, and it became a global mobilization based on the push from the LGMA. The same thing happened in the global stocktake. The global stocktake did not acknowledge local inputs. After our demands in June last year, this has been acknowledged. So now it's time to deliver this. So our proposal will be that every city hall, municipal parliament, regional parliament could turn into a mini COP, at least for a half day or a one-day event throughout the year. That these are the ones that our members take the role and responsibility of convening this with their local stakeholders, and that we as LGMA can help them to convene these events or provide inputs or report back to the ICLEI and LGMA so that we reach to the UNFCCC. And in these sessions, we would suggest a particular focus on three main focus. One, what is the urban component of their NDCs, the national climate plans, and how it is related to local and regional realities? Second, what is the local and regional contributions? What are our progress on our commitments on race to zero, climate emergency, climate neutrality targets? Are they really being implemented? Our communities, are they aware of those kind of commitments? And the third is, what are we doing? How are we addressing climate justice at home and domestically and globally? And if we can discuss this through this, where are we, where do we want to go, and how to get there, it can really give us a huge opportunity. And we can definitely connect this to our partners of different concepts like youth, like science, based on a assessment report of Article 6, IPCC Assessment Report 6, summary for urban policymakers, so that we can really expand this in a more holistic fashion. And this can inspire nations. When they go to Dubai, they hear the outcomes, they get the experience, and we can even consider multi-level stocktakes taking place before Dubai or at Dubai, even as a scenario. Under these conditions, I think this is where we are at the end of today. I'm happy to open the space for inputs. I know our colleague from Cities by the Center, Ingrid, was also planning to join us. If she's here, we can also give her the role that she can keep us informed. If not, we can also check whether Ingrid is here. And I also have seen we have received inputs from Felix and Helois. I suggest let's start with Ingrid shortly about how we are building upon the outcome of the Montreal summit, and then we proceed with Felix and Helois as the first respondents. Ingrid, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I've joined you now properly as a panelist. Thank you so much, Eunice. Yes, so just very quickly, there hasn't been much big progress. There's a lot of planning and reviewing NBSAPs to see that they, how to revise them and get them in line with the new targets in the GBF. Parties are also in the process, besides the sort of planning and preparing for the decade here in the next couple of years. They're also still very much involved in report backs to their stakeholders. In this past week, I was involved in a report back from the Minister of Environment in South Africa to her stakeholders. There was a huge group, a lot of interest, over 400 people from all different major groups, a lot of local governments and provincial governments as well in this country, basically asking me to report back specifically on the outcomes of the COP and the summit and the pavilion, insofar as the implications for local and subnational governments is concerned. And you saw the slide where Eunice summarized what the major outcomes were there. And the same happened in this week. The Committee of Regions ENVE Commission also had a report back to their constituency. There were the 2 members from the Committee of Regions that were present at our summit and participated there, as well as in the pavilion, who also did a report back. And I also, again, was asked to talk specifically to the implications for local and subnational governments. The CBD, some of the decisions that have been adopted have already been uploaded with their correct numbers and in the different languages. There are still several that are outstanding. I will put the link in the chat box shortly. And the one decision that is the dedicated decision and plan of action on engagement with subnational governments, cities, and other local authorities is one of those that has not yet been uploaded. We're having close discussions with various of our partners, including Regions 4 within the advisory committees, the CBD Secretariat, as well as provincial subnational governments such as Quebec, the Scottish government on those steps ahead now in terms of implementation and how we're going to institutionalize this and what the plans are. So there's quite a bit of preparatory working and thinking going around there. So hopefully within the next couple of months, we will have more to report on that. And then I just wanted to report very quickly also on another convention, which is the Ramsar Convention, which also had its COP last year in October in Geneva and in Wuhan. And for those of you that don't know, ICLEI co-chairs the Independent Advisory Committee on the Wetland City Accreditation Scheme under Ramsar. They are planning a mayoral network meeting in June of this year, in the first week of June. I think it's 8, 9, and 10 of June, which will take place in Amiens in France. And we obviously they're inviting all of the mayors and that are already accredited under the scheme, and also potential mayors and from cities that are interested, that meet the requirements in submitting applications in this new triennium, which has started this year. And we will be there. We're also in very close talks with them around using our Cities of Nature platform to profile and showcase the work of the Wetland City Accreditation Scheme and Ramsar's work with cities. I think, Eunice, I'm just going to leave it at that and then pop the link in the chat box for you.
Great, Ingrid. And of course, the importance that is related to climate community is that, as we discussed, and I will go back to this again, one of the opportunities that the high-level champion is Her Excellency Razan, is the president of IUCN, the International Global Network of Conservation, the global intergovernmental body. And IUCN is also partnered with Cities with Nature as well. And in her priorities, she has already expressed clearly that she wants to bring nature closer to the climate agenda. And in that sense, I think the achievement of local and regional governments in the biodiversity space would be a huge opportunity for us if it can be feeding into the climate space as well. Let's remember, in the biodiversity negotiations, the mechanisms, some of them are even much better than what we have achieved in the UNFC space. The way we engage, the way we are recognized, the way we are interacting with parties. I think when we are talking about a connection between nature, it's not just nature-based solutions, but also the connection between the biodiversity negotiations and the climate negotiations, that they help and support each other, take the good lessons from one another, so that we can even get better processes rolled out in the climate space as well. In that regard, so there are a lot of rooms for us to make this bridge between those processes. So I see Heloise, Veronica, Ursula, and Felix. Do you want to take the floor and intervene, or shall I read your statements or questions? How do you wish? Both is possible. If you have difficulty in connecting, yes, Felix, Katja, can we make Felix as the panel so that he can also show up with microphone and his video? Felix, I think.
Hi, can you hear me?
Chico.
Sorry.
Eloise.
No, sorry.
Your name is appearing with your surname at the beginning. So,
sorry.
Eloise and also Felix, you're also online. So let's start with Eloise, since you're already joined up.
Yeah, no, thank you, Eunice. Eloise here from Regions 4. No, thank you for this comprehensive agenda. And obviously, we want to support all the efforts. I was just wondering, so I understood that you wanted to push for a global stocktake reviews at the local and regional level. But I was wondering if and how you would want to consolidate what comes out from the regional level to the global level. Meaning, are we thinking to have a joint positioning from LGMA towards COP28? And there's also this Climate Ambition Summit on what the COP should look like, and also what are some key messages learning from reporting from the regions on the GST that we consider as relevant for the COP28. We would be very happy to support that. CORE is thinking doing in September a partners meeting in Malaga to look at some messaging for COP28. So just thinking whether it could be interesting to have a joint position that we could have around September for COP28.
Great, Eloise. Let's hear because there might be some complementary, so that it's not immediately that I respond. But I suggest Felix comes into the game, and then we can collectively respond and discuss if you want. Felix, the floor is yours.
Thanks very much, Eunice. I mean, the two comments I made in the chat box where you've got relatively rich local authorities in United Arab Emirates who could be leaned on to set up a fund to help least developed countries' mayors comes, and there's a number of foundations in there in United Arab Emirates that they would have access. So that's one thing. I understand the reason why people are being critical of the president of the COP, but he is also very active on renewable energy. And I think, sometimes it's a bit like, Nixon had to be president for China to be admitted. You needed a Republican to let China into the UN. You may very well need someone who has those right contacts there. The other thing is, as I don't think anyone mentioned, but we've lost Elizabeth as the head of the Convention on Biological Diversity. She moves to UNEP, which is great for UNEP, but not so good for the CBD follow-up. And I think that that's something that, there is now there has been, and she's been active on a biodiversity committee of all the conventions. And I think that process needs to be monitored. I don't know what your plans are for Bonn, because, if you look at the issues that, if we want local government to play a critical issue, it's to get some type of footprint in Bonn. And on loss and damage, as we know, there was no acceptance of historical impact of climate change in the loss and damage outcome. So it's really just going to be another fund. And then the question is, it's going to take a while to set up. Are there other avenues like the regional development banks or the national development banks where money could go quicker than waiting for something to be set up? And I particularly was thinking of the Caribbean Development Bank, as the CIDs are at the forefront of this, and maybe conversation between local government in Barbados, which is where they are, and the Caribbean Development Bank about, is there something which could be marshaled? It's just a thought on that. And then the other things are, are we going to get other issues onto the agenda? Oceans has moved forward. It's now, we'll have it was active in the sense of dialogues at COP27. It'll have a similar thing to COP28. But what about the rest of the things that need to be projected? And my final comment is on the nature stuff. There's a interesting process going on, discussion. There's a paper going to Nature that's looking at, because we're finding all of these offsets are not delivering what they've said. And so there's been a rethink by some people about starting from an ecosystem approach and seeing the trees as part of the ecosystem, or rewilding, some people call it, where you would in a sense be supporting not just the trees, but other carbon sink opportunities, but at the same time supporting the reestablishment of species in those areas. And I think it's still early, but it's definitely a conversation that's happening because people are worried about the forest only conversation. Thank you.
Thanks, Felix. I see Ursula and Veronica as well, so let's also hear from them, and then we can continue the dialogue. Thanks, Felix. Ursula.
Thanks, Yunus, and thanks for the great presentation. It's always great to hear all the updates. My question is very quick. I wonder if you could tell us more, if you know, about those September summits. You mentioned Leaders Summit in September during UNGA. I also saw that as part of the SDG Summit, there is a local and regional government forum. I do wonder if you could just tell us a bit more about this. What's the process of engagement? Are you involved? Who is coordinating that? If you know anything about that, we would really appreciate that.
Great. Veronica, you also had the point, but I think we can skip it because you said that you just read it. So let's, but if you want, you can speak, of course.
No, it's okay. It's okay, Yunus. You already read it. Thank you.
Great. So thanks for all the inputs, dear colleagues. Let's start with the ones that were easy. I mean, or let's follow the order. Eloise, especially on the global stocktake, I think, I mean, you remember we were in the technical dialogues. In the technical dialogues, they have limitations of the results. And you remember again, when the technical dialogues concluded, UNFCCC Executive Secretary, that it has to go to the political dialogue level. And it's exactly what we're saying, that this can happen at the local level, because the politics is not in the UN, politics is at the ground. So if we can really manage to have a debate on these three topics, what is your NDC, what is your local commitment, and what do you do on climate justice, we can have an enormous source of information that can be very valuable to the UNFCCC with our inputs that are synthesized and submitted. But also the model that we engage could also be inspirational, the way the political global stocktake will be held in Dubai. At the moment, we don't know how it will be held, and that is the reason why submissions are invited to be fed in. I believe the model that we have proposed is one of the most concrete and operationally easy and reaching to the real course of the topics. And let's hope this could be inspirational and feed into the design of the dialogue in Dubai. So that will be my process. And definitely on the way towards the summit, we should make sure there is this proposals and submissions, that it is really rich and diverse, and that it is reflecting our voices. And that connects maybe to the topics Felix mentioned. I mean, for the June session, the Daring Cities, the event that ICLE has been hosting traditionally in the first phase in 2010 to 2020, this was always back to back or in tandem to the climate negotiations. And we have elevated this into the Daring Cities concept, but the first 3 years were all virtual. Now, this year onwards, we will make it in person plus followed by virtual discussions. And this will be on the 12th and 13th of June. Obviously, the reason why we chose the second week of the UN climate talks is that the first week we will be very busy in UN Habitat Assembly. Obviously, the negotiators are different, ministers are different, but we as constituents are the same. We are following both the Nairobi agenda and in the UNFCCC agenda. Several of us will be in Nairobi, several of us will be in Bonn, and we will also, that's the reason why we wanted to schedule it, so that it is immediately after the conclusions from Nairobi, we can feed into the debate in UNFCCC. And at the UNFCCC, we are in touch with the champions, especially with the Secretariat and the presidencies too. We are committed to make a special event that we had with the Polish presidency the last time there was in-person meetings here, so that we really have a very diverse and strong interactions during the SP talks. On your point, Felix, about the funding, yes, this is exactly what the Emirates or the presidency is asking. The number is 1 per constituency, preferably from least developed countries and small island states. We could check whether they will have any resources to fund more, but at least officially they have given this opportunity, and we can define who could take that slot. On the loss and damage finance, of course, I think you're right. We do not want it to be one of the many funds, and if there's not even guaranteed that there will be a fund because the negotiations are not started yet. You mentioned the regional banks, but we're also, you remember, with FMDV, with UN Capital Development Fund, we're also talking about subnational banks also being an actor in this process. So let's make sure that all these type of discussions can be there. But of course, one of the interesting things with the Nicola Sturgeon's position, the fact that she's now stepping down from the Scottish presidency may have interesting implications. If she would be ready, if she's not tired enough, because that was her reason why for her resignation, she said that she was very heavily loaded all these years, and she wants to get back to a new normal that is individually she's stable in her mind and heart. But honestly speaking, I'm expecting Nicola Sturgeon to take an active role in the climate space. And who knows, maybe she could be the CEO or the chair of the loss and damage fund, where she was the first global north who was leader, who was pushing for this. It will be a brilliant opportunity. And we know she is, I mean, Scottish government is in the co-leadership of the Under 2 coalition and other initiatives. So maybe her decision could turn into new opportunities for all of us. We know how Arnold Schwarzenegger played this role. We know how Michael Bloomberg played this role. We know how Jerry Brown played the role. I'm expecting Nicola Sturgeon to play a huge role in the space. Now that she's a bit free from her political duty at home, she could be even more active in the global arena. So let's cross fingers. We will check with our partners, and I'm sure Under 2 Coalition will also have a discussion on that. You mentioned about nature and ocean. I think there are opportunities for cross-fertilization. I agree that Biodiversity Secretariat will be having weakness with the loss of their executive secretary, but I'm confident that there will be new leaders coming and stepping into those new spaces. But of course, I don't know too much of the details, and Ingrid is gone. What I know definitely, having the president of IUCN in the champions role is a huge opportunity for the biodiversity community as well. And Ursula, especially the Leaders Summit, the Climate Action Leaders Summit is led by UN Secretary General, and we have heard there's a new team being designed in the SG office. We'd like to improve our relations. I heard Under 2 Coalition also submitted views to the expert group on this transparency. Maybe we can use that channel as well. So let's build our resources. But on the SDG Summit, from our point of view, local and regional government engagement is led by the Global Task Force, which is served by the UCLG and the Secretariat. And in fact, next week, there will be the Global Task Force coordination meeting. They are the ones who are also involved in with UNDESA, with ECOSOC in New York. I suggest it could be a good idea if Under 2 Coalition also joins the Global Task Force. We can connect you to our colleagues in the UCLG. All of the partners, most of the partners in LGMA are also part of this process. The logic of Global Task Force is all the UN agendas that local regions are involved. Yes, we are active in climate as ICLE. There are others, for example, Mayor's Migration Council in the migration space, or UCLG is heavily leaning on the ECOSOC or in the Committee on the Women, and all the other partners doing differently. The Global Task Force is trying to make sure all of them are synergized and helping each other. So Under 2 Coalition would be a very nice fit to this group as well. But the more we hear about the preparation, definitely we can work on it, and we can come back with more updates. I think it's still in the making, so I don't think there's too much clarity, but we have to be quick, of course, so that we don't lose the momentum. Yeah, Ursula is eager to connect, so I will introduce you to Jean-Baptiste and Emilia as the Secretary General of UCLG as well. Felix has shared his blog, and actually we have benefited from your insights, Felix. We have included the Food System Summit stocktake as well as the Sendai Framework stocktake. On the Sendai Framework, we have a leadership change. ICLE is now handling the high-level co-chair role of the Making Cities Resilient campaign. And we will have also interaction with MAMI and UNDRR, especially also with dealing with the situation in Turkey and Syria, so that we can turn this into an opportunity. Yes, UK government would have to support if Nicola Sturgeon makes any move, but I think Nicola Sturgeon also has now a lot of opportunities now that she's free as a retired politician, at least retired from the national position. Let's see what conditions can come up. Let's see. Energy for SD, the Regions 4. Yes, Felix is a former leader of Energy for SD, still referring to the old name, but we call it as Regions 4 nowadays. So definitely, I'm sure they would like to build on her capacity as well. Sendai Day on the 14th. 14th of which date? I didn't know that. 14th of which month? February. Ah, I missed that. I personally missed that. Probably I was too much busy with supporting my colleagues in Turkey. Okay, I think we have reached a conclusion. I thank you all for this rich discussion, and it's good to stay connected. Heloise, by the way, in the morning session, our colleagues from COP28 also mentioned about your efforts for drafting submission to the global stocktake, and then she said that she will circulate the draft soon, and we will proceed as well. And I think we will be probably getting more warmed up because of the agenda is getting more advanced and more clear now. And I think we will start more interactions and sharing documents and share information intelligence and make sure we are actively involved in the process. With that in mind, I thank you all. And I think we are declaring that this session today is now over. I look forward to staying in touch with all of you. Thank you. Bye-bye.